Sex workers of Reddit, have any of you ever had a close friend or anyone you normally interact with daily be a super customer? What was the experience like, and how did it affect your interactions with them? Story 1. My much younger brother was getting married and had a bachelor party at a strip club with a dozen of high school friends. After about an hour there, a rather ordinary-looking strip comes on stage, takes off her top, and our tables of guys go wild, standing and applauding and hollering. I have no idea what is going on. This truck looks through the stage lights and her eyes get really big. She grabs her top and runs off stage to the back bouncers. Come running over to our table thinking we're starting trouble. Nope. It turns out all of the guys in his high school class had a history class with her a few years back. She later came out and talked with us and said she never thought she'd see someone, let alone 12. She knew it was in the next town. Over story 2 last semester, I ran a massage service, and I had this one client I particularly like because he was so friendly, positive, and just smart as __. I never asked my clients for their last names or too much about what they did for work. The only thing I really knew about this guy was that he was in a STEM field. Well, fast forward to one existential crisis in a college major change. Later this semester, I have to take chemistry. Lo and behold, that really smart client is now my professor. Neither of us is currently acknowledging it, but I can tell that we still feel that bit of connection. We did when he would come to see me for massages. It was a massage regardless of whether I'm a licensed professional. Giving someone a handjob after working out their pain and tension or knots, etc. for an hour doesn't mean you didn't massage them. I sympathize with those who are victims of sexual assault, and I face the same sort of things with my business. That's never okay. But massage therapy is, and probably always will be, associated with work. And people who engage in either endeavor should be aware of the risks involved. The people who conduct sex against other people are responsible, not me or anyone else who does South Park. I'm not going to call my service just a hand-up service, or whatever else people want me to say. Because a massage service is the most accurate phrasing for the operation I was running, I did not at any time claim to be a licensed professional, and I was always honest with clients about it. Yes, I am aware that it's illegal. Also, for the sake of massage therapists, please do not assume there's workers. Story 3 kinda sorted along the same lines. So I guess once a friend wanted me to go to a strip club with him located outside a small town in Alabama. A really young looking girl got on stage, and he told me, "Look at her. Isn't she the prettiest thing you've ever seen?" I said, "Yeah, but she seems like she's too young to be working here." Don't worry, she's 18. How do you know?" I asked. "She's my niece." I felt uncomfortable after that story, for in the mid-90s, my friends took me to a strip club from a bachelor party after a few cocktails and a few stage shows, in and out walks. An ex-girlfriend of mine, she was stunningly beautiful, but bat crap crazy. My friends desperately tried to get her to give me a lap dance, offering her 5 times the normal weight, but she refused, who said it would be too much of an emotional strain for her, considering how intense a relationship was. And she ended up sitting with us between her floor shows and lap dances. Just chatting, she'd actually got married. This was a way for her and her husband to save for a house about halfway through the evening. One of the other dancers grabbed me and pulled me up on stage and whispered into my ear, "Are you wearing underwear?" Which I affirmed. She pulled my pants down, sat me on a chair mid-stage, and another girl loosely tied my hands behind my back. Each girl took turns, giving me a lap dance up on the stage. Turns out my ex paid them all for a lap dance and arranged the entire thing. Funny end to that story. After that event, I was at work on the sales floor of a local big box retail chain. Working, and in walks my ex, we chatted and had half a good laugh. My lunch came. I went out into the mall towards the food court, and my ex came up beside me with a bit of a panicked look in her eyes. She slides her arm under mine and leans in and kisses me on the cheek, saying, "Let's go get that hot dog now." Befuddled, I walk with her towards the food court, and she proceeds to tell me one of her regulars was in the mall, and he was stalking her. She told me she was married and he didn't believe her, so I got to play the part of her husband. I walked her out to her car after the hot dog and had a leisurely chat to make sure she was safe. Never heard from her again. Story 5. Not a worker though. Funny story. One night my best mate was in town. I lived in another state, but used to live here. We went out clubbing and eventually decided to go to the stores. Pay our money, and as we enter, my friend notices a stripper laying on her back, spread eagle for a guy highly drunk. He yells out, "Hell, Yeah, how good is this? The strip appears and notices. My friend sits up and yells, "What are you doing in here?" My friend instantly went and sat in the corner, properly embarrassed. Turns out, it was his cousin. Story 6. There was a girl who went to high school with who was basically a walking stereotype. She fit so well into the archetypal Dead Sea blonde mold that you might swear it was an act if you didn't know better. She was also fac mean. This girl was a power fac and wasn't really nice to anybody. As far as I'm able to remember, people orbited her because she was hot and had everything. She never really bothered me because I did my best to be invisible with a handful of interactions I ever had with her. Left me feeling unpleasant. Turns out, she wound up being a pretty lucrative later in life. I bought a lap dance from her own. While being nice is part of the job, it really did feel like in those pretty few minutes, she did have a genuine personality shift. She was way more laid back. You could even hear it in her voice. She even commented about how she wasn't a bit like it used to be. And they have nicer tits. It was a genuinely fun interaction. She seemed happier in comparison to the person I remembered. Story 7. Not exactly someone I knew well, but I went on a Tinder date with a guy and went to see a movie. Nothing exciting, nice enough guy, but had no chemistry at all. So didn't stay in contact. Opened my hotel door to my client one night to see him standing there. Didn't react to the fact that I knew him, because there's not a single person who knows what I do. Spent the entire booking telling me how sad he was. We never caught up again and how he knew it was me. When he saw my photos were blurred and my face cropped out. But I've got distinguishing hair and how it must be fate clay dumb the whole time. Because this guy knew my actual identity and eventually asked him to leave because of how uncomfortable his behavior was, making me story 8. My mum was a stripper when I was in elementary school. A 22-year-old guy came in and paid for a lap dance, and my mom recognized his last name and asked if he knew Ruth. I have no earthly idea why she would ask him, given what she suspected. It got weirded out and said that Ruth was his mom, and my mom said that his mom was her daughter's 3rd grade teacher. He then begged her not to tell his mom where he was. Apparently my mom just laughed and said she didn't want her daughter's teacher to know that she was there either. I hated that teacher. She was such a jerk to me because we were poor and my mom always dressed slowly. I'm glad her kids weren't as uptight as she was. Story 9. I was an RA or resident advisor in college and had a pair of residents in my own wing who were both cam girls. Found out from rumors that were eventually confirmed when they had to help both of them get back up to the room after calling the paramedics because they were passed out drunk. Outside, a residence hall came into their room and saw the camera set up dildos and lingerie sets and pieces. Just laying out in the open. I also found out the night that they had a pet kitten in the room. Another rumor I heard about them that ended up being true, but also heard they abused it pretty bad, poor thing. Anyways, as we made it up to their wing, one of the girls came just as we entered their room and tried to play with a petkin. She rolled off the bed from her side. It stumbled across the room in just a few steps and ended up falling face first into the makeshift litter box they had set up for their cat catch. And cat litter are flung everywhere, or campus police were so confused and they showed up to find some poison cat litter everywhere. Their dorm room nearly looked like a crime scene. What a time college was. What a time. Story 10. My best friend's girlfriend used to be a stalker. After she met my friend, she quit striking and started working as a bartender at a pub. I was a manager at a luxury hotel, and we had a guest who would stay with us every other weekend and get a hug her, sometimes male prostitutes too. We obviously knew about him, and like all of our guests, maintained his privacy. One night, his smoke detector went off in his room. New Zealand has strict laws against indoor smoking. Normally, I'd get one of the duty managers to attend to such situations, and I only get involved when they refuse to pay the $200 fine anyway. That fateful night, the duty manager was busy handling another situation, so I go upstairs since I was a manager and I had the authority to blacklist any guest, and it is the guest's 3rd time smoking in the room. I knock on the door and I hear a frantic "hold on a sec." The door opens and he's just wearing his undies and noticing the reflection of the mirror inside the room. Chick going under the covers. They asked him about his smoking in the room. He very calmly and arrogantly told me that it was impossible for the smoke detector to go off as he had covered it with a condom. Now that is a literal crime, tampering with the smoke detectors. I told him that I will have to take a look at the smoke detector to see what he has done, and we'll have to report it to the fire department so they can come and make sure it was still functional. He let me in. I saw the condom-covered smoke detector and asked the guests to pack his bags, as I would be transferring him to another hotel. I was being very assertive, and I looked over at the lady, and my jaw dropped. It was my best friend's girlfriend. She was an escort without the knowledge of my best friend after I had transferred the guest to another hotel, and the fire department was already at the scene. I received the hook's call, asking me not to tell her girlfriend. I told her that's between them, that she needs to come clean, as a girlfriend truly loves her, and I love my best friend. She's been hurt and heartbroken many times. Lesbian drama. Then I had to go home and my friend was acting strange. Forgot to mention that my best friend and I were roommates too. I asked her what was up and she asked if it was true that I came on to her girlfriend. I had the most intense what the fuck moment. I told her everything. She wasn't tears. He didn't know if she would believe me or her. So she called her over to talk to her before her girlfriend got to our place. My friend came to me and asked me if I was 100% sure that it was her in the hotel room. I was absolutely positive. Then I hugged her and told her that I'm sorry that she had to go through that. I understand whatever she would decide to do next, that she would have my support even if that meant either of us moving out. I was in my room, pretty upset when the doorbell rang. My friend came into my room and asked me to accompany her to the door to greet her girlfriend. When we opened the door, my friend just asked me to make sure that Fack didn't enter the house. She then grabbed her stuff and threw it out in the stairs, some of which hit the cheating face. She then told her to never contact her or come near her after all that was said and done between them after the storm had passed. Made my friend her favorite cocktail, went to a room, climbed into our bed, and asked her why she did not even give her girlfriend a chance to explain herself. My friend's response: "It hurts to know that she lied to me, that she cheated on me with a man. But I could have forgiven her for all that. But I could never forgive her for accusing you of something like that. You're not just my best friend. You're my bro, my lesbian." We slept in her bed watching Grey's Anatomy that night. I truly miss her. But yeah, her ex is now a full-on prostitute working at a brothel and has cancer in her neck. Story 11. I worked in the brothel in my hometown. Before the brothel, I worked at a pharmacy owned by a man I got along especially with. We had a very close friendship and mutual feelings for one another, except he was married. And so we addressed the feelings but never acted on them. He always said he wished he had a time machine so he could go back in time and be with me, that whoever I dated would be the luckiest man in the world, etc. One day at the brothel, some dude booked me and accepted the booking. When I got into the room and noticed he was my old boss's son. I had met him a few times when he had come to see his dad. He said that he had been fantasizing about me since he had met me, which was weird because in the pharmacy, I never looked decent, and it was so weird. Sleeping with him, he had the same smile and eyes as his dad, and it really tripped me out. He became sort of besotted by me. He found me on Facebook and would ask me when I was working, or if he could come over. It was weird because he knew I had feelings for his dad, and really didn't care. One day, he was pestering me. So one of my coworkers suggested I say to him I will agree to have a booking with them if he brings in a pair of his father's dirty underwear. He was freaked out, but actually considered it. I told him I was joking and wouldn't be seeing him again. I felt guilty and weird. It was too close to home. One of my friends still works for his dad, and he can be difficult to work for. She always says, when she quits, she will say, "I quit," and the cat cube, "Fack your son," guys from school and stuff would come in. But generally I would avoid them, or just decline if I knew they were choosing me because they knew me. It's just easier not to mix things. Clients don't seem to understand that it's completely transactional, and that I'm not interested in talking to them for free. Story 12. A girl from my high school became a somewhat popular cam model, or amateur creator, nearly 50 million views. My school was small, so everyone knew everyone. And she dated a good friend of mine for a while, as if she was feeding a stereotype. She was the very quiet, nerdy, shy girl in high school. I found out what she did, but did not attempt to reach out to her, because I had no reason. One day, I came across her Snapchat account, so I added it. My screen name on there is pretty much my full name, so it wasn't like I was trying to be sneaky. However, I assumed she was too busy to look at when people add her to things. Shockingly enough, she messaged me later that day, and we chatted normally. She was super nonchalant about everything. Apparently, another kid from our high school found out and went into her chat room spamming her real name, followed by question marks. So she politely asked that I didn't do that. Seemed pretty reasonable. This was a few years ago. We were from the US, but she ended up moving to a major city in Europe. I happened to be visiting the area last year with my cousin for a backpacking trip, so on a whim, I decided to send her a Snapchat saying I was in town again. I assumed she would be bogged down with messages from other people that she'd never even bothered to look at. To my surprise again, she got back to me right away. We met for lunch later that week. I told my cousin we're meeting a friend, and I informed him what she does for a living, but I told him not to bring it up, unless she does. I wasn't sure how open she was about it in her day-to-day life. Sure enough, she showed up to lunch wearing a branded Letterman jacket with her stage name on the back. Kind of set the tone for what she was cool with talking about. Lunch was fantastic. We just chatted and caught up. She said we could ask her whatever we wanted to know. So all of my questions were about what it took for her to move to Europe. She also gave us tips and places to see while we were in town. Story 13. Former stock worker here, I worked as an escort in a smaller city for many years and showed my face in my advertising to prevent these kinds of awkward encounters. My partner at the time knew that I was an escort and was very supportive one day. A guy who worked with my partner booked me without recognizing me. We'd met at some work drinks a few weeks before, and I chatted with him and his wife for an hour or so, but it probably looked quite different out of context. I recognized him immediately and explained that we'd met before without explaining how I knew him to protect my partner's privacy. I said that we're likely to run into each other again as we ran in the same circles, and he'd really appreciate not having slept together should that happen. He was perplexed, but keen to hang out for the hour and relax platonically just to get away from work. About a month later, he showed up at my partner's birthday drinks. The penny dropped, and he actively tried to avoid us both. I slept with her former boss as well, who I recognized, but he didn't recognize me. Also slept with an ex-boyfriend's brother. We didn't recognize each other, but he mentioned his very specific family dynamic, and I realized it met him at his family Christmas party years beforehand.